Santora, and I want to update you on why we're here this morning. The reason for that specifically is that 24 hours ago, we were unable to fly. We were about 15 minutes from launch, and there was a hold called. The reason for that is that actually the SpaceX drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, had a power issue. They have generators on board that help control thrusters that help stabilize that platform in place on the water. And so they spoke with NASA in the midst of those power issues and decided they were going to wait 24 hours. They're actually pretty close to the Kennedy Space Center for this launch. So they came back to port, fixed the problem, and they're back out ready to go. So technically, we're in good shape, I think, for today's launch.
Another concern they had yesterday was the weather, and we want to take you to the satellite imagery that shows exactly kind of what's going on to the east of Florida. You can see that low pressure system lifting off into the north, and then there's one out to the west. You can see the blob out there by Texas and Louisiana. But here at Florida, we're sandwiched in between those two fronts, and as you can see from the radar, it's clearing out. We're inside that blue circle. Conditions couldn't be better for a launch. We're at 90% go. So let's take a look at the graphic with the breakdown. CRS-17, the forecast calls for 15 to 20 mile per hour winds out of the southwest. The temperature is 73 degrees. The only concerns at the moment are ground winds, and they currently, as you can see, blowing 15 to 20. So we're 90% go for launch.
That's right. Teams have been working for hours now getting ready, and there you see the beautiful Falcon 9 and Dragon on the pad. And technically, things are going great. The rocket and spacecraft in good shape. The range is clear. We did the collision on launch assessment. No problems there. And we began fueling, as you can see, that oxygen boil off there. Very normal and expected. The launch team, led by Mike Taylor with SpaceX, they began fueling about 20 minutes ago. So, Daryl, we're looking great.
Yeah, and you can see the winds carrying the vapor coming off the rocket, that condensated air. One of the reasons we have so much data from this particular rocket is because of where we are. We kind of want to give you a look inside. We're at Hangar AE, and we're going to take the camera behind us live to show this room here. This is the Mission Director Center at Hangar AE, where all of the data from the rocket and the pad flows into this facility, and then it's taken and then piped out to launch teams in Hawthorne, California, where they are controlling the launch. This hangar deals with hundreds of thousands of measurements, engineering units, which are then displayed to the launch team so they can see exactly what's going on. This is a pretty incredible place. They can launch 5 rockets at a time here due to recent upgrades.
Yeah, it's a really impressive feat. Fortunately for us, we're just keeping tabs on one rocket this morning.
Definitely.
And we will continue to do that through the morning. We are still on track for our instantaneous window of 2:48 and 58 seconds Eastern Time here a very early morning at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Jennifer, we're going to send it back over to you, but we'll keep you updated.
Thanks, guys, and we'll check back with you a little later for another update. Right now, we are at T-minus 14 minutes and counting. Let's check in with SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, where the Falcon 9 rocket and Crew Dragon were designed and built. Michael Andrews is joining us live from SpaceX's Mission Control Center. Michael, will you tell us a little bit about Dragon's history and reusability?
Sure thing, Jennifer. This morning's mission marks SpaceX's 5th launch of 2019, and today we'll be launching a flight-proven Dragon spacecraft, which first visited the International Space Station once before on the CRS-12 mission back on August 14, 2017. Now, both Falcon 9 and Dragon were designed with reflight in mind, so the vehicle hardware is built to support multiple missions with minimal refurbishment in between. And while this Dragon has flown once before, the booster we'll be flying today is actually brand new. And after stage separation, we'll be bringing that first stage back down to our drone ship, which is named Of Course I Still Love You, so that it can be flown on future missions. Our Dragon spacecraft has been flying for nearly 7 years now, and today it's one of the few vehicles flying that can deliver significant cargo to the ISS, and the only one around that can deliver significant cargo from it back to Earth. To provide a little bit of historical background, in 2010, SpaceX became the first private company to send a spacecraft to orbit and return it to Earth. And only 2 years later, Dragon became the first privately developed spacecraft to visit the space station. Since then, SpaceX has made a total of 18 trips to the ISS, and we're under contract with NASA for a total of 26 of these cargo resupply missions. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Michael. Liftoff of today's rocket from Launch Complex 40 is timed right down to the very second. The reason for this? SpaceX needs to get their cargo spacecraft lined up to rendezvous with the International Space Station. For more on this, let's check in with NASA's Leah Cheshire, who is live at Johnson Space Center in Houston. Leah?
Thank you, Jennifer, and good morning from the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston. The Orbit 1 team is currently on console, and these flight controllers are monitoring all of the systems on board the station. They're led this morning by Flight Director Emily Nelson. She gathers information from all of the controllers on the ground and oversees the team through their day-to-day activities. The visiting vehicle officer this morning is David Harshman. He's in communication with mission controllers in Hawthorne as well as here in the room in Houston. We have 6 crew members living in space right now. That includes Canada's David St. Jacques, NASA's Anne McClain, Oleg Kononenko and Alexei Yevchenin of Roscosmos, and NASA's Nick Hague and Christina Cook. We've been expecting this launch, of course, aside from the scrub last night, we were expecting to see it earlier this week. But on April 29th, teams here identified an issue with a main bus switching unit, and that distributes power to 2 of the 8 channels on the station. There were no concerns to the crew or the station, but it was important that the station was back to its full power capability and that the Canadarm2 had a backup string of power for the arrival of Dragon. So what you see here is a remove and replace of that main bus switching unit, which occurred earlier this week over 2 days and ended on Thursday, with robotics ground controllers using Dexter, the manipulator, to complete the operation. So with that being completed, station is now in an optimal configuration for Dragon to be captured and berthed on Monday, May 6th. Once Dragon arrives to the International Space Station, Canadian Space Agency astronaut David St. Jacques will use the Canadarm2 by taking his place in the cupola up by NASA's Nick Hague. They'll use that Canadarm2 to reach out and grapple the spacecraft and then turn the controls back over to the ground. Continue to use the Canadarm2 to berth the spacecraft to the Harmony module on board the International Monday, but right now we're looking forward to the launch. That's our update right now from the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Leah. Now let's take a look at some of the exciting science taking place on this mission.
The International Space Station U.S. National Laboratory has a variety of payloads that are packed and ready to launch aboard SpaceX's 17th resupply mission to the International Space Station. Many of those payloads represent The ISS National Lab is partnered with a branch of the National Institutes of Health that is providing funding to support the use of tissue chip technology for research on board the space station to benefit human health on Earth. 4 of these tissue chips in space investigations are launching on this mission. Tissue chips, small chips containing human cells grown on an artificial scaffold to model the structure and function of human tissue, enable better disease modeling and higher accuracy drug screening. In microgravity, human tissue chip models have the potential to accelerate pathways for understanding the mechanisms behind disease and developing new treatments. Pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca is sending the first of multiple investigations to the ISS National Lab to improve patient care on Earth. This project seeks to advance a novel drug delivery system that uses nanoparticles as carriers for drugs to provide targeted and controlled release therapies. Specifically, the research team will evaluate a proprietary method of nanoparticle formation in microgravity toward improved drug formulations that have greater efficacy and are easier for patients to tolerate. This mission also includes multiple protein crystal growth investigations. In microgravity, crystals often grow larger and with more uniformity than on the ground. High-quality crystals provide a more detailed understanding of protein structures, which enables improved structure-based drug design. One protein crystal growth payload from the National Cancer Institute's Chemical Biology Consortium aims to conduct multiple protein crystallization experiments on the space station aimed at drug discovery. The goal is to develop an accelerated drug discovery pipeline that takes advantage of macromolecular crystallization in microgravity. While we highlighted some of the life science research investigations that are part of this mission, the ISS National Lab is driving research initiatives through all walks of scientific life. From physical and material sciences, technology development, in-orbit manufacturing, small satellites, and much more. To get a better idea about the full breadth of research that's happening on the ISS National Lab, visit issnationallab.org and go Dragon.
We want to welcome those of you just joining our coverage of today's launch of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket with Dragon cargo spacecraft headed to the International Space Station. Today's launch is instantaneous at 2:48 and 58 seconds. Now let's look at some quick facts about today's launch. SpaceX transported the Falcon 9 rocket out to the launch pad and lifted it to vertical launch position for its 17th cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. The launch window today is instantaneous, which means SpaceX must launch at the exact second for the planned liftoff or try again another day. The Dragon spacecraft will deliver about 5,500 pounds of astronaut supplies and payloads for science research to the orbiting laboratory. The plan is to keep the Dragon spacecraft docked to station for about 4 weeks before bringing it back to Earth. When it does, the capsule will splash down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California. We are now just 6 minutes from launch. Let's head back over to the Mission Director Center where NASA's Joshua Santora and Daryl Nail are monitoring communications between the launch managers. Hey guys, how are things looking for launch?
Hey Jennifer, everything's looking really good at this point. Weather's clear, the range is good to go. We'll talk more about that in a second. We're under 6 minutes before launch. I want to talk a little bit about this rocket and spacecraft. The rocket that SpaceX is brand new, but the cargo spacecraft has flown in space before, and there you see it. It flew on CRS-12, and we take you back to a hot and humid day in August of 2017 when SpaceX first launched this Dragon spacecraft on a mission to the International Space Station. It was CRS-12, and it was a beautiful launch. Look at the view from the beach that we had there that day. What a gorgeous launch that was, and a successful berthing to the International Space Station. That happened just a couple of days later, and the Dragon then delivered 6,400 pounds of supplies and experiments at that time. It was in space for 34 days. This particular spacecraft, though, quite voluminous. If you consider a 20 cubic foot refrigerator to be about the average refrigerator, this thing can store up to 40 refrigerators worth of stuff. Pretty spacious inside there, Joshua.
It is indeed, yeah. And this is an exciting time. Obviously, we're under 5 minutes now until launch. Still on track for that instantaneous window at 2:48 and 58 seconds Eastern time. And I just heard the call out. They're working towards retracting the strongback. So the strongback, or transport erector, is that tower you see standing right next to the rocket. So there's a clamp at the top just beneath the Dragon. And so if you look really closely, you should see that clamp expand and release the actual rocket, and then the strongback will tilt back a couple degrees, and so we should be seeing that any minute now. And so again, lots of things happening. The goal of the next few minutes is to ensure that the rocket and spacecraft are self-sufficient. So that strongback provides fluid and power and telemetry, all of the information that it needs leading up to launch, but obviously at liftoff, you have to be self-sufficient. So we're going to continue to listen for these calls and update you. Other things that have happened, we heard the engine chill beginning. So the 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the Falcon 9, they will cool those because we're using a cryogenic fuel, which obviously you can see there, the boil off of the liquid oxygen is happening. That's very normal. Gaseous oxygen, we're talking about the cryogenic fuel being on the order of negative 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And so in an ambient environment like outside, you're going to see that boil off. So this is all very expected, and things proceeding as we would expect. So we'll kind of keep you up to date as we hear these calls coming out. But again, we're just 3.5 minutes now from liftoff.
And it's quite a sight there at night to see that cloud, the vapor cloud coming off that very, very cold rocket late in the, or early in the morning, we should say, on Saturday. The specs on this rocket, it's a 2-stage rocket, 230 feet tall, 12 feet in diameter, and has 1.7 million pounds of thrust from the first stage, 210,000 pounds of thrust from the second stage, and it's fueled with RP-1 and liquid oxygen for both stages. It's headed to the ISS, which is currently catching up to our area of the world, and once it's launched, it will then intercept the International Space Station a couple of days later and then be berthed to it.
We did just hear the call out for the fueling of the first stage, that liquid oxygen. They're done with that, so that's great. So another important milestone. We also are expecting somewhere in here, we won't be able to see this, but those 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the Falcon 9 will all gimbal slightly. It's a thrust vector control check. And the reason for doing that is that those engines are ultimately the steering for the rocket in flight. And so they want to make sure that they're all operating correctly so they can steer after a liftoff, and we're expecting that that's done now. And you can kind of see also at the base of the rocket there, oh, there's the nice shot of the Dragon at the top. You can see now that clamp has expanded, and that strong back did tilt back a couple degrees. It will lean back much further at liftoff. There's stage 2 locks close out. Just got that call. So like I said, the strong back will tilt back even further to be clear of the rocket during liftoff, and the Falcon 9 is now on internal power. So it's a really exciting time here. We're going to allow you to just kind of listen in and enjoy. One other thing you'll notice right before liftoff, at about 18 seconds to go, the pad will actually begin to receive a large quantity of water. And the reason that they kind of dump that water on there is to help cool the pad as well as to help with sound suppression. It's a very loud event, and that sound can actually cause disruptions in infrastructure. So let's listen in now and enjoy.
Falcon 9 is in startup. Dragon is in startup.
Ground gas closeouts complete.
Stage 2 pressing for flight. Go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Stage 1 pressing.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9.
And the final seconds.
7.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, carrying research seeking to improve human health on Earth and in space.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Urine chip, AOS.
Power and telemetry are nominal.
Vehicle is supersonic. Vehicle is experiencing maximum aerodynamic pressure.
So there are a couple really important calls: maximum dynamic pressure and exceeding supersonic speeds. So all good things, and we heard a nominal call on telemetry.
MVAC chill.
Just meaning things are going well. Also the MVAC chill, that's the second stage. There's a single Merlin vacuum engine, and that's begun its chilling process in preparation for its portion of the flight here in just a minute. In about 20 seconds or so, we're expecting to hear the call for MECO, our main engine cutoff.
And then just a few seconds after that, we're going to get some separation.
So there you saw the MECO.
MECO.
And that's the stage separation.
Stage
Tough
separation confirmed.
to see exactly what happened there.
Entered its flip.
Oh, there we see some action. So the first stage has now begun it just did its boost back burn, and the MVAC engine has ignited. So we have all these things happening very, very quickly, which is great news. All things going well. Again, there you can see the second stage single engine, and that has ignited and is working as expected.
The booster falling back, we know is going to be landing closer to Florida than in previous landings on the drone ship, because the drone ship just a few miles off our coast.
Yeah, that's correct. So typically the drone ship will actually be more towards somewhere off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida, or Georgia. And today they're actually just, I think, a couple dozen miles off the coast here, away from us at the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. So this is, so again, a really quick series of events happening. We just got the call for the first stage boost back burn completing. So they're essentially turning that rocket around, because when they launch, they're not just launching straight up, they're launching up and to enter an orbit, kind of chasing after the space station. And so the Falcon has to not only turn around, but then it has to kind of aim for that, Of Course I Still Love You, the drone ship. So it's definitely it is an amazing feat to be able to actually return a booster like that, which SpaceX is getting really good at that.
It is indeed, and we're on obviously the dark side of the Earth right now, so not seeing much in the background, but we are seeing that second stage performing well.
Yeah, so kind of previewing the things that are coming up, and we'll stay with you through part of this, and then we'll be passing it off here in a minute to the folks over there at SpaceX. But we have seen liftoff, which went really well. We made it through max Q. We had the first stage separation finishing its task and beginning its boost back here to off the coast of the Kennedy Space Center. The second stage has ignited, so we're going to see the second stage run for a couple more minutes, and then it will turn off. It will cut off, and then the second stage will separate, and then the Dragon will be deployed at that point. We need to see the solar arrays deploy as well to kind of complete this delivery process. The first stage, its job is really to get this rocket out of the atmosphere. And then the second stage, its job is to get the Dragon into the correct orbit. So a very symbiotic relationship there, making things happen, making things come together well. And we are hearing much more calls about things being nominal. And nominal is just a word that we use to say that they're going as expected. They're in the range of acceptable. And that's something that we always enjoy hearing, those calls coming. Obviously, that's what we need to hear. We want to hear that.
We can see a live view of the drone ship from our view. We can't have that on the camera, not at the moment, but the drone ship is ready to go, and the International Space Station currently approaching Australia as that Dragon spacecraft seeks to rendezvous with that orbiting laboratory. And there you have the shot, picture-in-picture, with the drone ship on the right side, and on the left side of your television, you can see that second stage burning up.
Yeah, so again, we've kind of finished our task here today. We're going to send you over now to SpaceX. They're going to stay with you through the second stage operation and the Falcon 9 landing. So, Michael, take it away.
Sure thing, you got it. So in order to make its way back to our drone ship, the Falcon 9 first stage executes a series of 3 burns. We're going to watch those and go through those live with you. The first is the boost back burn. We've already seen that at about T+2.5 minutes. This helps slow Falcon 9 down horizontally. Shortly after this first burn is initiated, the 4 grid fins at the top of the first stage, they deploy and help guide the rocket during descent. Following the boost back burn, and coming up in about 30 seconds, is our second burn, the entry burn. This slows the vehicle down before hitting the dense part of the atmosphere. We're relying on the atmosphere alone to slow down Falcon 9. Without that entry burn, it would put unnecessary strain on the rocket. So let's wait, and let's watch for that 20-second duration burn.
Stage 1 entry burn is started. Stage 2 continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
During this entry burn, it's important to realize we've used most propellant on the launch and the liftoff. We're now trying to conserve that fuel for this landing. So instead of firing all 9 of our Merlin M1D engines, we're only firing 3, which is why this exhaust may seem elliptical. At this point, we're waiting for our last burn, the landing burn. This happens just before touchdown. It'll last about 30 seconds and takes the booster softly down to the drone ship. Our 4 landing legs also deploy at this
Stage
time.
1 FTS is safed.
And speaking about that conservation, only the center Merlin M1D engine number 9, fires during this burn.
Stage 1 landing burn is started.
Stage 2 has entered terminal guidance.
Landing legs have deployed.
Landing legs are deployed.
Of course, I still love you. Falcon 9 is landed. Landing operators move into procedure 11.100 on recovery 1 and ECF 9.
And so we're still waiting for confirmation of that landing of our Falcon 9. And we're currently watching SECO 1. This is the second engine cutoff occur. And we can confirm that the Falcon 9 has landed on our drone ship. Of course, I still love you. We'll show you feeds when we can, but this marks the 39th booster landing from SpaceX. Congratulations to the entire SpaceX team for another successful landing. This secondary mission is an important part of our commitment to vehicle reusability. And back to our primary mission, it's continuing on the second stage. We're in our good desired orbit. We're waiting to see in about 20 seconds the Dragon deployment. Let's listen for that call out.
Expected loss of signal, Cape Canaveral. Acquisition of signal, Newfoundland.
Dragon separation confirmed.
And there it is. We have a successful deployment of our Dragon spacecraft on its way to the International Space Station. You currently can see some of that unpressurized cargo that resides in the trunk and is exposed to the vacuum of space. With Dragon deployed, the next major milestone will be the deployment of the solar arrays as Dragon makes its way to the International Space Station. Let's pass it off to Leah at Houston for the solar array deploy, the final milestone of our coverage this morning.
Thank you, Michael. And yes, that solar array deployment occurs about 12 minutes after launch, so we'll be listening for that confirmation very shortly. At the time of launch, the space station was flying over the Indian Ocean, and astronauts on board are just getting their day started. However, 2 days from now, they'll be preparing for the arrival to the station. Once Dragon arrives, we'll have a grapple and berthing. But right now, our biggest milestone is awaiting for those solar arrays to deploy. We'll stand by for that confirmation. This is a live view of the International Space Station Flight Control Room as flight controllers await for the confirmation of that solar array deploy, when Dragon will begin harnessing the sun's power on its journey to the International Space Station. We hopefully will see some movement on that right side of your screen.
This is Dragon CC on countdown 1. Dragon's propulsion system has successfully primed, and all thrusters report ready for firing.
You can see those solar arrays beginning to unfurl right now.
And Dragon is deploying its solar arrays.
Processing New Hampshire as expected.
And we have confirmation of successful solar array deployment as Dragon continues its journey to the space station. You can watch its arrival on Monday morning, May the 6th, by tuning in to NASA TV at 4:30 a.m. Central Time for the grapple and berthing of Dragon to the Harmony module on the International Space Station. A great launch this morning and first stage landing, and we're excited to see Dragon arrive on Sunday. That wraps up our coverage from Mission Control Houston. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Leah. And that's going to wrap up our coverage. I'm Jennifer Wolfinger, and from everyone here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, thank you for joining us for the successful launch and landing of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. We leave you now with another look at today's launch. Have a great day, everyone, and may the 4th be with you.